Deep in Peru's interior, in the shadow of the Andes, is the seldom visited Yanachaga Chemillén National Park. Covering over 1,200 square kilometres, its steep slopes rise to over 3,000 metres and are covered in tropical cloud forest. Within this forest is an extraordinary variety of wildlife, much of which is endangered and some of which can be found nowhere else on Earth. This rich habitat includes hundreds of species of birds, many mammals from monkeys to river otters, and an incredible range of insects and amphibians. But perhaps the most infamous of these creatures is the mysterious spectacled bear. In July 2014, seasoned explorer John Blashford-Snell leads a 25-strong team of international scientists, medics and explorers into the national park. Their aims are to conduct scientific research and humanitarian aid in the various communities they will visit on the month-long expedition. John has led well over 100 expeditions all across the globe during a career that spans 7 decades.
I really got involved, I suppose, in expeditions in a big way, being a Royal Engineer, because our job was always to conquer obstacles, whether you did it mechanically or in an engineering way or on foot or however. We were always trying to get through some sort of difficult terrain. I was very fortunate in going to Sandhurst in that one was taught an awful lot about leading people and looking after the needs of others. I think the main skill to have in leading expeditions is to have a sense of humour. If you can keep people smiling and laughing and happy in some way, even when conditions look pretty terrible and all hope is lost, that will do a lot to boost morale and keep the team going. Well, all the expeditions have been challenging in different ways. It's quite hard to say which was the most challenging. I mean, I look back at the Blue Nile as being probably the most frightening. And of course, it needed a lot of development to find a way of getting through white water. And this led, of course, to the production of the whitewater boat. Then you take the Darien Gap, which was undoubtedly the toughest to get Range Rovers from Alaska to Cape Horn. Much of it was on roads, but the 250 miles in the middle between Panama and Colombia is some of the densest, the most difficult forest in the world, with swamps and disease and bandits galore and so on. That was extremely hard work. We only got through by the skin of our teeth. I think we emerged from the swamps in Colombia sort of 8 hours before the rains came. So hence the book was called The 100 Days of Darien, and we got out on 99 and a half. First of all, the request for an expedition has to come from the ground, and all the expeditions I've done in recent years have started with a community in the area, or it might even be someone like the British Embassy saying, there's a problem here, do you think that there's anything you could do to help? The next thing is to go out there and see them and let them take you around, show you the problems, and then from that you try to deduce what you can do. And then, of course, you've got to fire the plan back at the people and say, now this is what we think we can do, does this suit you? And then if they say yes, then of course you've got to come back home and form a team, raise the money and go and do it.
Back in Peru, the group has been divided into several smaller teams, and they are busy with their preparations. For the medical team, this involves sourcing and packing hundreds of boxes of much-needed medicine. At the same time, the biologists are making plans with the local rangers. Provisions too are being sorted and packed for each group to take with them.
The aim of the expedition is basically to do with the conservation of wildlife, and in particular, of course, the Yanachaga Chemillén National Park. And DRIS, the foundation that is managing the park, is trying to build up sort of ecotourism in the area, and also, of course, to protect the fauna and flora. And the particular one that they're interested in is the spectacled bear.
I'm really here as the science person on this expedition, so I will be mainly looking at the parks, trying to think about different monitoring regimes that the parks can carry out to better survey the species that are here. And I'm the Andean bear stud bookkeeper, so I actually coordinate the international moves of the species around the world within zoos and captive populations.
Broadly, the aims of the SES expedition, certainly in recent years, are to bring together a group of qualified professionals, particularly medics, dentists, those with specialisms in community aid and scientific researchers, who can visit a relatively uncharted region and undertake really tangible scientific research.
In the short time that we're going to be here, we can't do a lot, but we've got a team of people with a wide variety of skills, and I'm hoping that by using all their skills, we should be able to do something really worthwhile for the area.
I'm part of the support med team, a couple of doctors, dentists, myself, another nurse, and we'll be doing community aid.
For locals in the villages, unlikely that they've got their own dentists, and so basically want to just provide pain relief, extractions, simple extractions and things like that for them. While doing that, we're supposed to be increasing the awareness of the spectacled bear, so for each extraction that we do, say for a child, we've got these little teddy bears to give out.
It is a way of getting at people's hearts and minds, because, as I say, if you're offering them something that they can't get anywhere else without paying, of course it's attractive. You can ask them to do something in return, and in this particular case we are asking them to protect the spectacled bear in particular.
I got involved with the Scientific Exploration Society through Operation Raleigh. I went as a staff member in 1992 on the first Mongolian expedition, and when I came back I realised that it was something else I would really like to take a bit more interest in.
My experience on Operation Raleigh really had quite a significant impact on my life, and as a result of that I've always wanted to go again to experience the same sort of adventure and challenge.
What I hope to get out of the expedition is to visit a part of Peru which is relatively uncharted, certainly by tourists, and also to work with leading scientists in connection with the spectacled bear, and to have that experience and being able to be exposed to that is a real privilege.
I have been to Peru before. The wilds here are spectacular. The diversity of wildlife is superb. You've got thousands of different bird species, orchids, you have the diversity of mammals, many different types of monkeys, cats. It's just a wonderful place to be, beautiful country, beautiful scenery.
To go somewhere where I've never been and never actually been focused on going is very exciting, because it's a bit of an open book actually. I don't know much about the place, so everything is going to be new and interesting and potentially exciting.
Doing the projects on the ground really gives me a great feeling. But not only that, it's the opportunity to meet real people, to meet the communities, sometimes humble people, sometimes people that we say, oh, we are going to teach them, but at the contrary, we learn from them.
One of the big driving factors for me, surprisingly, is the difference that taking a pair of glasses to somebody in a village, which means they can read again after perhaps 5-6 years where they haven't been able to read. Such a simple act, I know, but so rewarding.
There are many challenges that we will come up against whilst actually trying to find the animals, because the terrain is difficult. It's a difficult environment to work within. Pretty much you have to stick to paths and you observe your animals from the paths. There's a limited number of people that actually work within the parks themselves that can do the monitoring. So to do it yourself is one thing, but it's really about passing on those skills so a continual monitoring regime can be undertaken by the locals.
I've always wanted to do expeditions in the past. I've done a couple before just as a member when I was a bit younger, and I think it's quite useful to go out and do something a bit different. And I've just completed the diploma in tropical medicine, and it'll be useful to use that because obviously we are within the tropics. It's mostly the medical side that's drawn me. That's where my passion lies. I love medicine and I love travel, so it's good to be able to combine the two together.
I think it's going to be quite difficult to achieve as much as we'd like to achieve.
You have to be adaptable and overcome what comes along. But we've got very good backup in the base camps and things, and I'm quite certain we shall succeed.
It's a good group, and I think we're gelling together, and I think we stand a good chance of succeeding.
Wildlife photography is now my main activity. Being part of a group like with the Scientific Exploration Society allows you to get to places which would be more difficult to get on your own, and it gets me closer to the animals I want to photograph.
The scientific researchers leave the main group behind and set out northwest. Their route is a slow one, as the road twists and turns precariously along the side of a valley. But they make good time and arrive before nightfall in time to set up camp. Today's the culmination of over a year's work by John Blashford-Snell, because we finally come into Yanachaga Chemillén National Park. We're a team of about 10. We're only going to be here for about 4 or 5 days, so the chances of seeing a bear, even with our camera traps, very remote indeed. We spoke to the ranger who said he's seen a bear twice in 16 years, so I suppose that's once every 8 years. So we set up camp. We're going to start documenting the wildlife we see over the next 3 or 4 days, and then we're going to produce a report which we'll give to the government, which will hopefully go some way into helping them come up with a plan for the long-term protection of the national park and therefore species like the spectacled bear. In order that they might see as much as possible, the group will be guided by local Peruvian rangers. The rangers work for CERNAMP, who are the national agency set up to manage and maintain all of Peru's national parks.
Yo soy un guardaparque del Parque Nacional. Mi trabajo principal, tanto el mío como los demás mis colegas, es diverso. Pero la primera función que tenemos nosotros es la actividad de control y vigilancia. Y aparte de eso tenemos la función es muchísima más, es diverso. El guardaparque tiene que saber todo. A veces hacemos de investigadores, a veces hacemos de un peón simple que tenemos que cultivar los senderos. Una tarea todo en conjunto. Aparte que tenemos otros objetivos, por ejemplo, incluir en la parte turística para poder de esa manera hacer que la gente que se encuentra en la zona de amortiguamiento también pueda hacer algo que ingrese para mejorar su situación económica. Y aparte también para conservar la biodiversidad, porque este parque anteriormente ha sido el lugar donde ha sido el refugio del Pleistoceno. Justamente esta parte está en el parque, entonces debido a eso hay mucho endemismo, mucha biodiversidad. Porque se entiende por refugio del Pleistoceno que antiguamente, pues, cuando había la glaciación, esta parte así como una isla, entonces hayan quedado pues, muchas especies de flora y fauna, que hoy en día eso se está haciendo diverso, ¿no?
As the team's zoologist and bear expert, Dr. Amy Hall has a very good idea which species the group may be lucky enough to observe and record over the coming days.
In the national park, I'd really hope to see cock of the rock because they're quite a difficult bird to see, and then hopefully lots of different types of passerines. If we could see some mammals, brilliant. Andean bear would be superb, but it's very, very unlikely to see one of those.
It is decided, given their visit to this part of the park is only brief, that the team will explore the area around their campsite, recording all the wildlife that they see. So on their first evening, Hector takes them to the lekking site of the Andean cock of the rock, Peru's national bird. The males are magnificent birds, not only because of their bright orange plumage, but also their very prominent fan-shaped crests. Amazingly, after a wait of about half an hour, a male arrives to display and claim his territory, right above the heads of the team. And it isn't long before another male joins him. An auspicious start to their time in the rainforest.
The most exciting point was when we followed the tracks of an ocelot into its den. And unfortunately, we couldn't go further enough into the den to actually see it, but it was quite clear from the tracks that that ocelot had come back and was sleeping there. Wampal is sort of a midways area in terms of altitude, and it was going to have some species that you would not see anywhere else, but it was never going to be the smorgasbord of life that you get in the rainforest. Next week we are going there, we are going into the proper rainforest, and that's got brilliant things that come with it. For example, the fact that we are going to see many more of everything.
The team leave Wampal and travel to Iscosocene, a small town deep in the rainforest just outside the eastern slopes of the national park. Here, the rest of the group joins them. They will spend a few days preparing kit before venturing back into the park.
At the moment, we're just sorting the supplies out for Group X, who are going to Paquil. They're going away for 8 days. And for Group Y, who will be travelling tomorrow to Nuevo Esperanza, for a day's supply. So it's a little bit easier on this side. We've only got to sort out a couple of lunches and a breakfast and a dinner. And as you can see, things are a bit hectic trying to identify what stores we've got and what is needed in both parts of the expedition. And the boys are just finishing packing it up so it's suitable for transportation by river.
We've just been informed that the boatman who's going to take a selection of the team up into the national park has just fallen off his motorbike and scraped his feet and his hands quite badly. And we've cleaned up all his wounds and we've just put some antiseptic on because he's the only way we have of getting into the national park. Thankfully, we've managed to go to the pharmacy and buy a few extra dressings and buy a few large bandages to put around his leg. And what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to waterproof his foot, and he's going to get some of his colleagues to come and help him, so he should be able to drive the boat but not have to do too much lifting or anything. So he should hopefully be fine to go.
The next morning, the boatman has had his wounds waterproofed and is ready to take the team up the river. After a few final checks, they begin their journey. As they head upstream, the boat must traverse a series of rapids. The team must disembark at these rapids so the boat is light enough to get through the shallow water. The rocks are extremely slippery and several of them end up falling over.
You all right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, no one is hurt and they continue their journey on foot. A little further up the path, they have to negotiate a tricky river crossing, holding on to one another to avoid being swept away. There is then one final river to cross, but thankfully a second wooden longboat is on hand to take them to the far bank.
We've just arrived in Port Hill and we were quite surprised at the large lodge that was waiting for us.
The journey into Port Hill was very interesting. I mean, beautiful, beautiful landscape along the river, but the track in itself was quite tough, you know, wading through water, climbing up through mud, walking along dried riverbeds. But once you're here, it makes up for it. It's a fantastic location.
With the elevation and the fact that now we're in the rainforest, everything should be there in larger quantities. Things that were completely missing from Guampal, like amphibians and reptiles, are here known to be in large quantities. So we'll see lots of frogs. Some of the frogs here can be absolutely spectacular. Reptiles, it's a mixed bag because on one hand, we're absolutely desperate to see as many as we can. On the other hand, 5 of the reptiles living here could actually kill us. So we'd like to see them before they see us.
The next morning, the team head out into the jungle. They are keen to explore the area around the camp and get a first impression of the habitat on this side of the park. To help them gather vital information about what species might be living here, they have brought various technological aids. These include remote camera traps, which when triggered by movement will record for a short length of time, both in the daytime and crucially at night.
The wildlife I would expect and hope to see here would be quite diverse. I mean, hopefully many different bird species. If we're lucky, maybe even jaguars, capybaras. You're always hopeful for an Andean bear, but it is a bit low-lying here, but, you know, fingers crossed.
Living and working at Port Hill are a small group of scientists from Peru's Missouri Botanical Garden. They are conducting a long-term study of the flora and fauna in the national park.
Y estoy como investigador botánico, responsable de los proyectos de vegetación y del monitoreo de fauna, haciendo instalaciones de cámaras trampa para ver las poblaciones de los diferentes animales que existen en el área, es decir, cómo se comportan los bosques frente a un cambio climático. El parque creo que tiene ecosistemas muy diferentes y cada ecosistema, cada pedacito del parque alberga muchas especies diferentes. Hemos encontrado un lugar en el Perú, lo bastante megadiverso, vamos a decir así, no solo en vegetación, sino también creo que en animales. Hasta el año 2000 más o menos, o 2002, cuando hemos llegado a Oxapampa, estaban reportados solamente 13.000 a 17.000 especies de plantas. Pero al ingresar aquí al Parque Nacional Yanachaga, ya registramos más de 25.000 especies. Eso indica un trabajo arduo, como verás, ya más de 13 años, y es muy importante por esa diversidad, ¿no? Parque Nacional Yanachaga es un lugar muy atractivo para poder traer turistas, y no solamente turistas comunes, vamos a llamar así, sino también turistas científicos, ¿no? Que hay muchos en el mundo que quieren trabajar. Entonces yo creo que Yanachaga, o en esta parte de la selva central de Perú, no hay esa actividad, pero sí se podría empezar, ¿no? Yo creo que es una buena salida.
Despite the amazing biodiversity here, it's actually quite hard to find the animals. I mean, the mammals particularly, as you'd expect. Birdsong all around, but trying to locate the bird that's making the sound is quite hard because the jungle's so dense, as you can see behind me, that you can only kind of see 5 metres well, and then it just starts to become a green wall. Lots of insects, mosquitoes and these little tiny bees that are very interested in the sweat that we're producing, so they land on you most of the day. And butterflies and moths as well come and land on you. Just put my bag down, and obviously my back's a bit sweaty and the butterflies have accumulated on the bag and are having a little meal. The next day starts with a steep climb along a path that leads northwest to a viewpoint. Just a few hundred metres from camp, they are distracted by something moving through the canopy high above. Eventually, a male kinkajou can be seen jumping from branch to branch. This is a rare sight, as the kinkajou is a largely nocturnal animal. They continue to climb steeply before the path levels into a ridge, which runs for half a kilometre. Whilst catching their breath at the top, they are slowly surrounded by a troop of woolly monkeys. Possibly due to their remote location and their lack of human contact, these individuals are unafraid of the team, and one female even has an infant clinging to her back. Meanwhile, Gregory and Amy have spent the day surveying the wildlife elsewhere, but as yet no one has seen any signs of the elusive spectacled bear. The sight of the woolly monkeys has therefore encouraged everyone to keep up the search. I've just walked up the mirador at Parhil as the search for the spectacled bear continues. I've tried to gain a bit of elevation, come up to 800 metres to look at the mountain range behind me to see if there's any sign of the bear. We don't have much time left to find one, and as yet, even though the rangers have seen them around here, we haven't managed to get one on the camera traps or seen one in person. We've only got a few days left to try and track them down. We've got to keep trying until the end of the trip. Sadly, the time has come for the group to leave the jungle behind and retrace their steps, first back to Iscosacin before finally heading back to Lima. There is some disappointment that they haven't managed to see evidence of the bears, but maybe the very fact that they are hard to see will keep this species protected for years to come. Several days later, the team are back in Oxapampa, close to the southern limits of the national park. Amazingly, amongst the hustle and bustle of this large town, reports have come in of bear sightings. It is the team's last evening here before returning to Lima. So Gregory rushes off to meet the farmer whose land the bears have been sighted on.
This looks like tracks from an adult bear. We climbed this tree. You can see the 3 very, very characteristic claw marks everywhere. Because of the growth of the bark, it's quite likely that the tracks are already quite old, maybe 6 months.
So, in an amazing stroke of luck, our team have finally found evidence of the spectacled bear here on the edge of Yanachaga Chemillén National Park. And of course, it had to happen on the last evening of their very last day here, about an hour before sunset.